Hi, this is week 4, video number 2. In this video, we're going to talk about how to do the APA in-text citations and what they are. And I should warn you, this will be kind of dry, but it's very, very, very important. So I'm going to ask you to grit your teeth and get through this material with me. Once you're through this video and you understand all of the concepts, you really are on your way to being an APA genius. So I'm just going to go into our example paper, and we're going to take a look at that. Whoops, sorry, I opened up the wrong thing there. I'm going to go into our example paper that we looked at last week. And show you what some APA in-text citations look like so that you can identify what they are. So here I am in the sample paper. I have it up on the screen here. And if you look through the actual writing that's been done in various places, there's information I'm highlighting on the screen here, information in brackets, okay, as the person is writing through. These things are what's called APA in-text citations. So sometimes you see names, sometimes you see page numbers, sometimes you see dates. Initially, it seems like it's really, really random, but it actually follows a very specific pattern. And it's the pattern that we're going to be focusing on today, so that when you're writing, you can acknowledge where your information is coming from properly. So again, if you just flip through, you'll see in the sample paper, I've used all sorts of different examples so that you get some idea of the different ways that APA in-text citations are done. Okay, but again, as I said, they're not as random as they may initially appear. And when you're first starting with APA, it seems really confusing, but there's actually a very specific pattern that you follow. And in order to go through the pattern, what you want to do is you want to ask yourself, as you're writing a sentence, 3 big questions. Okay? And these 3 questions is what's going to allow you to identify what type of pattern to use as you're writing. So your first big question is, am I direct quoting or am I paraphrasing? And you only have 2 possible answers for that. You're either direct quoting the information or you're paraphrasing the information. Your next question is, how many authors do I have? And there's only 3 possible answers to this question. I have 1, I have 2, or I have 3 plus. And then the final question I need to consider is, am I using the author or author's name in my sentence? Only 2 possible answers to that, yes or no. Based on how you answer these questions, you're going to follow a specific pattern for your APA in-text citation formatting. So, for example, if you're paraphrasing and you have 2 authors and you're using the name in the sentence, you're going to do one thing. But if you're direct quoting and you have 3 plus and you're not using the name in the sentence, you're going to do something else, and so on and so forth. So there's a pattern for every single combination of the answers to these questions. Initially, that seems really taxing and really, really difficult. But once you get adjusted to the pattern, it's very, very easy to do. So again, if this is your first time using APA, this is going to seem strange initially, but you do quickly get into the habit of being able to do the in-text citations. You're going to be doing so many of them that eventually it's going to become second nature. In order to make it easy, what I've done is I've created something for you that I like to call my cheat chart. Okay. And this is a chart that I've set up that covers every possibility of using information and then gives you an example of what to do. I always find it's easier to work from an example and take the example, break it down, and then do it yourself. The first part of the cheat chart deals exclusively with direct quotations. So we're going to take a look at that first. The second part of the chart deals with paraphrasing. Okay, so remember, your first question is, am I direct quoting or am I paraphrasing? For this part of the chart, we're going to be direct quoting every single time. Okay, so I've set the chart up so that it identifies a situation and then it identifies what to do. Okay, let's take a look at the pattern. So imagine that I'm doing a direct quotation or using a direct quotation. I have one author and I'm going to use their name in what I'm calling my signal phrase. So again, remember, we always need to integrate the information. So I'm going to use the author's name here. Here's what I would do. I would say, according to Smith, that's my author's last name, quote, cancer is a very common disease, unquote. To do the APA, what I'm going to do is immediately after the author's name, I'm going to open up a bracket and I'm going to put in the year of publication, just the year. Okay, even if I know the month and the volume and the issue, doesn't matter. APA says only the year. Okay. Then after my quotation, so after I put in my final quotation marks, I'm going to open up another bracket and I'm going to put in P period space and then the page number that the direct quote appears on. Then I'm going to close the bracket and I'm going to put my period outside the bracket. Okay, so your basic pattern is author name, year of publication following the author's name, and then page number immediately following the direct quotation. Okay, pretty easy. I might, though, want to take that quotation and not use the author's name as I'm transitioning into the quotation. So I might say something instead like, certainly, most people would agree that, quote, cancer is a very common disease, unquote. If I decide to do it that way, then I'm going to have a super bracket, and I'm going to put all of this information at the end. So I'm going to open up the bracket. I'm going to put in the author's last name, a comma, a space, the year of publication, a comma, a space, P period, space, page number, close the bracket, period. Okay, so your basic pattern is if you're using the author's name, you put the year right after the author's name and then the page number right after the quotation. But if you're not using the author's name, then you use a super bracket and you put in the author's last name, the year of publication, and the page number. Okay, that's your basic pattern there. But then, of course, we have complications because oftentimes we have more than one author. If we have two authors of our original source, I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm still going to stay with the same basic pattern, but I need to acknowledge both authors. So if I had a quotation from a source that was written by two authors, when I put in the author's two names, I would put in the first last name and then AND followed by the second author's last name. So in this case, our example is Jones and Wagner. After their names, I'm going to open up a bracket and I put in the year of publication. And then after the quotation, I do the same thing as I did with the one author. I open up a bracket, P period space, page number, close the bracket, period. If I have those two authors, but I decide that I don't want to use their name in my signal phrase, like the example that you see here on the screen, I'm going to go back to that super bracket where I'm going to put everything in. But I'm going to do something a little bit different this time. I'm going to put in, after my quotation, the first author's last name, followed by an ampersand, the and sign, followed by the second author's name, comma, year of publication, comma, P period, space, page number, close the bracket, period. So the difference is if I'm using the names in my sentence, I use AND between the two names. But if I'm using the super bracket at the end, I use the ampersand. Okay. Sometimes I've had students say, well, why? And I have no answer to this. It's just an APA rule. So again, right, if you're including them in your sentence, you use the word AND. If you're not including them in the sentence and they're going in the super bracket, you use the ampersand. Okay. The next example is what we do when we have 3 or more authors. And remember, there are some journal articles that are out there that have dozens and dozens of authors. You can't possibly list them all. So APA says that you can take a shortcut. And the shortcut is the et al shortcut. ET space AL period. That's Latin and it means and others. It stands in for all of the authors that you're going to leave out. So when you have 3 or more, you're going to list your first author's name and then the words et al to indicate that it's first author, last name, and others. So let's take a look at the example. So let's say this is coming from an article with 10 authors. The first author that is listed is Smith. I say, according to Smith et al., then year of publication after the name. I go into my quotation, and then I put my page number after the quotation. Okay, so technically I'm saying according to Smith and others, but again, I guess just to be fancy, we keep the Latin. So we say according to Smith et al., period, bracket, year of publication, close the bracket, quotation, bracket, P, period, space, page number, close the bracket, period. Okay. But if I have 3 or more authors, but I'm not going to use their name in my phrase, I instead go back to that super bracket where I put all of the information together. And this time I say Smith et al., period, comma, year of publication, comma, P, period, space, page number, close the bracket, period. Okay, so these 6 situations and 6 examples give you everything that you need to be able to handle direct quotations when you have everything from 1 through to 1,000 or more authors. Okay, all you need to do is keep that pattern in mind. Again, when you're first starting, this can seem a little confusing because, again, remember, you're doing this every single sentence that you're writing. You're showing where your information is coming from. It's confusing, so keep the chart with you. Okay, eventually, though, again, just like I've said, APA is just like driving. It will come naturally, and you'll find that you're doing your APA in-text citations without using your brain at all. I mean, you won't even be thinking. You'll just automatically follow that pattern. That's direct quoting. We need now to talk about paraphrasing. Okay, and remember again that paraphrasing is when we're using information from a research source, but we're expressing it in our own words. So I read an article or a book, or I look at a website, I take some information from there, I use it in my own writing. I still need to show where that information is coming from. Okay, very, very important. So even though you're being original and you're doing original writing, you need to protect yourself, show where that information is coming from. The good news is that APA in-text citations for paraphrasing follows almost exactly the same rules as direct quoting, except you never ever put the page number in. So when you're paraphrasing, all you need to worry about are the authors and the year. Makes it a lot easier. So let's take a look at the examples. So if I'm paraphrasing and I have one author and I'm using the name in my sentence, I'm going to put in the author's name followed by the year of publication. So take a look at the example here. Fraser, that's my author, bracket, year of publication, bracket, believes that cancer can be cured with radiation treatment alone. But if I decide that I don't want to use the name Fraser in my sentence, I might say something instead like one scientist believes that cancer can be cured with radiation treatment alone. And then at the end, I'm going to open up my bracket, put in the author's last name, followed by a comma and a space, and then the year of publication, close the bracket, period. If I have 2 authors and I'm using their name in my signal phrase, I'm going to follow the same rule that we did with direct quotation. So I put in both authors' names, Eves and Peters, and I use A and D between the two, and then I put the year of publication right after their names, 1945, and then I move into my paraphrase. But if I decide not to use their name in my sentence, I'm going to open up a bracket and I'm going to put in the first author's last name, followed by the ampersand, the end sign, the second author's last name, a comma, a space, and the year of publication. Same thing if I'm using 3 or more. So with 3 or more, remember we can take that shortcut. I only list the first author that's listed. So in this example, it's McKelvey. And then I put in the Latin, et al, E-T, space A-L, period. Then the year of publication. That's because I'm using the author's names in my sentence. But if I decide that I don't want to use the author's names in my sentence, I'm going to open up that super bracket right at the end, and I'm going to put in the first author's last name, the et al, followed by a comma, et al, period, comma, space, year of publication, close the bracket. Okay, that's it. That's all the pattern is. So it really is about just keeping it straight in your mind, whether you're direct quoting or paraphrasing, how many authors you have, and whether you're using the author's names in that sentence, yes or no. Once you have answered those questions, it's very easy then just to follow the pattern. A couple of things that I want to mention to you. APA says that when you have a quotation or a citation within a citation, you're going to do something a little bit different. So let's say you're looking at an original document, and that original document includes an APA citation. So they've cited somebody else, okay, as they're writing. If you're doing that, okay, you're going to do a citation within a citation. And again, this is sort of a little complicated, but it's easy once you get the hang of it. I should mention as well that APA says that you should try to track down the original where you can. But if you can't track down the original, you're going to do what they call an indirect reference. Okay? On your references list, the only thing that you're going to include is the source that you yourself are looking at. But for your in-text references, what you're going to do is credit the original source by adding the words as cited in to show that you've quoted a secondary source rather than the original. Okay, so what does that mean in plain English? Let's take a look. Let's imagine, okay, that I have an article or a book that's written by somebody called Smith. Okay, and this is being cited in Jones. So the book or the article that I have in front of me is Jones, that was printed in 2005. But Jones is referencing Smith. I would write Smith, bracket 2001, and then I go into my paraphrase or my direct quote. But at the end, I would say, as cited in Jones, comma, space, 2005. Okay? So the original or the first author, okay, to assert the idea gets the credit in your sentence, but then you show where you got it from at the end of the sentence. Okay, that's just a bit of an exception for those situations. So again, right, be very careful if you're looking at your original and your original is citing somebody else, you have to take a little bit of an extra step there. Okay, so again, flags should go up if you see that so that you can follow the pattern. But your basic pattern, again, is laid out for you in this cheat chart. Make sure that you're using the cheat chart as you're writing. In our next video, we're going to go through some exercises so you get a bit of practice doing the APA in-text citations. It might be useful to either print out this cheat chart or have it open on your screen so that you can refer to it as we go through the exercises. Okay, you definitely deserve a big cup of coffee for getting through this 20-minute video about APA in-text citations. get your pens and your paper ready for the next video. We're going to work through some exercises. I'll talk to you then.